Let's examine how the UK, once a beacon of stability and prosperity, is now being compared to struggling economies. This isn't an overblown headline or idle critique. It's a growing sentiment supported by stark realities. For decades, migrants, particularly from India and other parts of Asia, viewed the UK as a land of opportunity, a place where hard work could secure a better future. With its storied history, the NHS, and a global reputation for fairness, the UK seemed like the ideal destination. But for many who arrive, the reality is anything but. Picture this. You uproot your life, leaving behind everything familiar in search of a better future. Yet, when you arrive, long hours barely cover the rent in overcrowded housing. Many migrants are shocked by how little their earnings stretch, how underfunded public services are, and how elusive the opportunities they sought truly are. This isn't just anecdotal. Surveys and studies consistently highlight rising dissatisfaction among newcomers, trapped in an environment of economic stagnation, soaring living costs, and systemic barriers. So how did the UK transition from being a model of prosperity to a place where even middle-class families struggle? The numbers tell the story. In 2023, the UK's GDP grew by a mere 0.1%. That's less than what many developing nations achieve during economic downturns. While projections for 2024 suggest slight improvement at 0.7%, this pales in comparison to countries like India or parts of Southeast Asia, where growth routinely exceeds 5%. Such stark contrasts reveal deeper issues. One critical factor is stagnant productivity. For over a decade, the UK has failed to improve labor efficiency. Contributing factors include an aging workforce, rising health challenges, and insufficient investment in skills development. Compounding this is economic inactivity. Millions of working-age individuals are unable or unwilling to work due to health problems or a lack of opportunities. Inflation, while moderated from its peak, remains a significant burden. Essential services like housing and utilities are still prohibitively expensive. Core inflation, which excludes volatile items like energy and food, hovers around 4.2%, while service inflation, covering rent, childcare, and transportation, stands at a daunting 6%. These figures represent genuine hardships, with families struggling to make ends meet. The cost of living crisis compounds this struggle. Energy prices remain higher than pre-pandemic levels, and food inflation outpaces wage growth, making even basic necessities increasingly unaffordable. Middle-class families, once considered financially secure, are being pushed to the edge. Consider mortgage costs. With interest rates at 5.25%, 700,000 households are expected to face steeply increased payments in 2024, forcing tough decisions like cutting back on expenses or downsizing homes. Tax increases add another layer of pressure. Government measures aimed at raising £40 billion in revenue have placed a heavy burden on individuals and businesses alike. While intended as a fiscal safeguard, these taxes stifle investment and innovation, leaving workers and entrepreneurs feeling the strain. Meanwhile, public services are in crisis. The NHS, once the pride of British society, is under immense pressure from underfunding and staff shortages. Wait times for appointments are at record highs, forcing many to turn to expensive private care or forego treatment altogether. Schools face similar challenges, with budget cuts and teacher shortages undermining education quality and access. All these factors culminate in a diminished quality of life. Inflation outpaces wage growth, public services deteriorate, and housing and food costs soar. Even full-time workers find their wages insufficient to maintain the lifestyle their parents once enjoyed. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. Feelings of frustration and disillusionment spread, creating divisions and eroding trust in institutions. Part of the UK's struggle lies in its lingering nostalgia. Many, particularly older generations, cling to the belief that Britain remains a global power. Memories of empire, when Britain ruled vast territories and dominated global trade, persist, shaping how some perceive the nation today. This mindset, though comforting, is disconnected from reality. The empire formally ended decades ago, but its echoes remain in political rhetoric and public sentiment. This attachment to the past often blinds the country to the need for urgent reforms. For instance, Brexit was framed as a path to reclaiming sovereignty, but the result has been economic stagnation, trade barriers, and diminished global influence. Internally, this mindset prevents recognition of the country's pressing challenges. High poverty rates, crumbling infrastructure, and an overburdened healthcare system are too often dismissed as temporary setbacks rather than systemic issues. This reluctance to face reality delays innovation and adaptation. Other nations like Germany and South Korea have embraced change, investing in education, technology, and green energy. By contrast, Britain remains tethered to outdated ideas, impeding progress in a rapidly evolving global economy. Pride in history is not inherently harmful, but when it overshadows the need for forward-thinking policies, it becomes an obstacle. Beyond nostalgia, Britain faces structural economic challenges. The middle class, once a symbol of stability, is under siege. Rising living costs and stagnant wages leave even dual-income households struggling. Consider housing. Average home prices exceed £286,000, with London and the Southeast far surpassing that. Renting is equally dire, with tenants spending over half their income on rent. Food inflation has made even basic groceries a luxury, with costs for staples like bread and milk climbing sharply. Wage increases haven't kept pace, leaving many feeling stuck. Real wages today are lower than in 2008, despite longer hours and harder work. Cuts to social welfare programs exacerbate poverty, with 14.4 million people, including 4.3 million children, now living below the poverty line. Universal credit, meant to streamline benefits, has often left families worse off. Wealth inequality deepens the divide, with the richest 10% controlling nearly half the nation's wealth while the bottom half shares just 9%. This disparity breeds resentment and weakens societal cohesion. The rise in knife crime further highlights the country's struggles. Over 50,000 knife-related offenses were recorded in 2023, fueled by poverty, inequality, and cuts to policing and youth services. Public services like the NHS and education are at breaking points, leaving families to shoulder the burden privately, further widening inequality. Without systemic reforms, these challenges will persist, threatening the country's future. The UK stands at a crossroads. Its challenges, though daunting, are not insurmountable. Addressing them will require abandoning outdated mindsets, embracing innovation, and investing boldly in the future. Change is difficult, but it's essential for the nation to reclaim its potential. The extent of these challenges requires a clear and unified national strategy. Targeted investments in green energy, digital infrastructure, and education could reignite economic growth. By partnering with global leaders and committing to sustainable development, the UK has the potential to redefine its global relevance. Restoring faith in public services will also be critical. The NHS, for example, needs comprehensive reforms, including addressing staff shortages, increasing funding, and modernizing facilities. A healthier, more educated population would contribute to both social stability and economic progress. It's about making Britain resilient, not reliant on past glories. At the same time, addressing poverty and inequality must be a central focus. Expanding access to affordable housing, implementing fairer tax policies, and increasing support for struggling families could begin to bridge the widening wealth gap. These efforts would not only improve individual lives, but strengthen the nation as a whole. Another essential step will be fostering innovation. Countries that succeed in the 21st century invest heavily in technology and research. Britain must prioritize sectors like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and renewable energy to remain competitive. These industries are not just lucrative but pivotal for long-term global leadership. Fostering social cohesion will be vital. Policies aimed at reducing divisiveness, increasing transparency in governance, and ensuring equitable opportunities can rebuild trust in institutions. This trust is foundational for any prosperous and united society. The path forward is challenging but achievable. Britain has the resources, talent, and history of resilience to turn the tide. But it requires facing these problems head-on, without delay or denial. It's a chance to shape a new legacy for future generations. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.